it has been so beneficial to build the strong foundation and understanding how the horse works, because now, just like I say, once you get the fundamentals, you can go out and glean a little bit of something from any professional, right? This person says that, that might not work on this horse, but I know that'll work on that horse because of, and so you can get these little bits. We can do the same thing out in the world. You get an article and maybe 90% of that article you can discern based on what you know to be true, and no, that's no good. But that paragraph right there about whatever it is, now that's interesting. And so you can pull bits of influence from anybody if you have that foundation to discern upon, right? To be able to judge critically and be able to connect the dots of who it's going to work for. And I think that's so important.
Yes.
You're listening to the Primarily Hooves Podcast, where we make learning accessible from the ground up. Hello, everybody. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are Primarily Hooves. And this is the Primarily Hooves Podcast.
Yes.
And we are so glad you guys are here to join us today. So today is part 2 of how we got our name, why we're called Primarily Hooves. If you've been around, you'll know that the first 5 episodes of our podcast, because our podcast is new, the first 5 episodes have all to do with who we are and giving you the background information on us before we get into diving into topics surrounding horses, horse care, centering around hoof care and hoof health. That is our specialty. So if you haven't seen those first several episodes, go check those out. This episode was just supposed to be an episode 5, but we got an hour into the first part and realized that we still had another hour left, so we decided to break it into part 1 and part 2. We upload our podcast to YouTube so you can watch the video, and it's on all of your favorite podcast apps. Very talented backing, Caroline.
Good backing, girl. Look at that.
Every other Saturday, we record our podcast in our miniature horse barn with our miniature horses. So kind of like Caroline there, you'll hear us talking to them sometimes when they do something cute or fun. Caroline had walked up, got a sip of water, and then because of how we're set up, instead of turning around, she backed straight as an arrow, like 10 steps out of the barn. It was pretty impressive.
It was impressive.
I wonder what Diego's not going to do.
He's going to he'll go and knock the camera over.
Probably,
next.
Yes. That's a little about us and what this is and what we're doing. I want to let you all know that we are on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and even X. And we run a Patreon. And we are just so thankful for each and every one of our Patreon members because they make all of this possible. They are one of the most valuable parts of our team in doing this online stuff, sharing this information with you guys for what they afford us to be able to do.
Yes.
We have gotten an influx of comments on social media, and in the beginning, we really tried hard to keep up with them and respond to everybody. But as time goes on, that has been harder and harder to do. So if you need something from us, if you have a question you want answered, we make extra special care to keep an eye on the Patreon and get back to your questions over there in your comments. It usually takes no more than 24 hours at this point. That could change as things change, but 24 hours for us to get back to you over on Patreon. So if you need something, become a member and go talk to us over there. That's where you'll have access to us. One of the incredible things that the Patreon is doing is allowing us to focus our time where we see you guys need it most. And so through our career of rehabbing lame horses, giving hoof clinics, and just being out in the world and now online, we have kind of seen a similar issue popping up over and over again, and that is, don't knock my drink out of the cup, Diego, with your head. That is, people don't have the fundamental understanding of how the internal anatomy works in the hoof and how that relates to what you see externally. And then that creates a lot of confusion. So in the case of my rehab horse owners, a lot of times they'll say, I wish I knew this sooner, meaning they wish they knew how the inside worked and how that related to what they saw on the outside. Because my navicular horse client, who's been battling navicular disease for 10 years, if she knew back when her horse was 8 years old that his frog contracting and him developing a central sulcus infection would lead to navicular disease, and that was an external representation of the deterioration inside, she would have never let that happen. But she didn't know. Right? And so she had to go down that rabbit hole until finally Everybody said, you have to put the horse down because it's so bad. And she said, there's got to be something else. And there was. But she wishes she knew it sooner. If my check ligament injury client knew that her horse's long toes were putting stress on the soft tissue up the leg while he was trying to do 4th level dressage, right? She would have instantly done something different and changed that hoof balance so she didn't have to spend the next 6 years dealing with injury after injury and the stall rest and the rehab, the sports medicine rehab and the therapies just to have him injure it again as soon as he went back to work, right? She would have done something sooner. And so down the road, now he's 21, he comes for rehab, you fix him up, now they're home showing again. But wouldn't she have loved to do that when he was 15? And the thing is, we just talked about suspensory injuries in part 1 with Suntan. This isn't Suntan. This is a totally different horse. Cruz Bay, who will be going up on Patreon soon. This happens so much, you know? And yet if people knew, you've got horse owners online who are having an issue. So they're delving out into the world of hoof care and they're trying to make sense of things, see what they can learn. And what they're running into is there's a lot of voices out there talking about trimming with different opinions, right? And so one guy might say, you don't need to trim the heels, while another guy might say you need to trim them down to the live sole plane. And then you've got another guy who says, never touch the toe. You don't need to shorten the toe. It'll take care of itself. And another guy says, you need to bring the toe back to white line. And there's all this different stuff. And they're contradicting themselves, right? And so horse owners are left in the middle with their heads spinning. They have a problem. They are not successful dealing with their home team for whatever reason. And so they're searching. And yet they're just finding contradictions and they don't know which way is up. And now they're left even more helpless and confused than they were before. Whereas if they knew how that inside of the foot worked and how its development is encouraged or disabled and how that looks on the outside of the hoof, right? If they had this kind of fundamentals installed into their heads, well, then they could glean information from these different sources, because what that guy's saying over there may be applicable to this, this, and this, but what that guy's saying may be more applicable to this, this, and that presentation. And so you can take and pick and choose and apply appropriately from all sorts of different resources and avenues if you understand the foundation of how it works. And that is what's lacking. So all that to say, with the Patreon, I am so thankful for you guys because you guys are affording us time to work on larger projects. And one of those larger projects is a course that we're putting together that we're very excited about. It's the first time we've ever really put together a course of this caliber, so it's all new things. But the thing is, stuff like that takes time. And we have 20 very special horses here who all have some kind of, or all came with some kind of issue. It's why we have them, whether they've foundered, they've got navicular disease, they've got Cushing's, they've got extreme EMS. They have something that was failed to be fixed. And their owners got to the point that they were just tired. Maybe the veterinarians recommending put them to sleep, whatever. It's just, they're done. They've done everything they can do. And so these horses, either their owners find out about us or we find out about them through word of mouth, or you see free to a good home, pasture sound, that kind of thing. We're always learning. We want to experiment. We know we can help to some degree. And then what's that horse going to teach us? So we've taken on over the past several decades. You started in Florida in the late 90s, taking on these horses, helping them. And so now there's a full farm of 20 head of very special creatures who are all stable and doing great, but they still require maintenance, certain maintenance, because we've promised them we're never going to let them go back to how they were, right? And so you have to take a certain kind of care of them, and that takes a lot of time and money. And then we used to afford that, we used to travel 3,000 miles a month servicing clients in our area, right? Providing for them hoof trimming services, which has just been a blessing. But there's a lot we worked for since we moved to Tennessee. And so that's 20 years. And so it's an amazing journey and blessing to be with these horses for 20 years and watch them age and be able to keep them sound and healthy and thriving into old age. But at the same time, nature comes for all of us. And so some of them have gotten old have passed on. And so what we used to do is you'd replace that horse, right, with another horse. So you keep working, keep making money, keep supporting these guys here. Whereas now, with the course and with the Patreon and with I've got video projects I have a lot of stuff running around in this brain of mine that I want to be able to do for you guys. That takes time. But then that also takes money because you need equipment and you need setup stuff and you need, microphone, these things. And so our Patreon has come in at the perfect time because it's just the last 4 months. We've started posting on social media, started putting ourselves out there. Like, are people interested in this? Would they want to learn more about how the hoof works? And yes, it's just been in the last 4 months. And so the Patreon's picking up. And so then as things change with client horses, we're doing the really scary thing of not replacing them. So we have more time here focusing on creating for you guys. And so if you have horses, you know how scary that is, not because they're not something I want to be able to put together at some point is taking care of horses on a budget, because there's smart things you can do that's honestly better for them that then can also save you money in the long run. And so we're very aware of these things. And yet you've got 20 of them, that's not an expense. And so it's very scary. And yet you guys' support on Patreon is making us feel like, okay, we don't need to put an ad out or we don't need to tell our clients, oh yeah, no, you can tell your friends about us now. No, let's just not take on new ones. Let's pour in more time here because we can reach more people by doing it this way.
That's right.
When you're only 2 people. And so you're helping people in person and that's awesome. But you can only reach so much, whereas the internet's reach is so broad. And my goal here with the course is to install the fundamentals into people so then they can go out and make their own good choices.
Right.
We have the photo, we have the how to take good hoof photos mini course coming up, and that'll be for free. And that'll be a prerequisite to the main course because if you're somewhere where you don't have good access to farrier care and you need consultation or need to be taught how to trim online, or you have fine farrier care, but you need to consult with a vet with hoof photos or whatever your need may be, you need to know how to take good hoof photos.
Right.
That's a very important part of being into this understanding of the hooves. And so that's something I'm putting together for people. And some of you have run into this issue, but I used to provide online hoof markups where I would consult, critique your horse's feet, tell you how they're doing, or teach you how to trim online. I had that service too, and I've paused that right now, again, for the whole time to work on the course. And the reason is, if I just tell you your horse's toes are too long, or if I just tell you you need to take the heels back if you're trimming, I'm just telling you that. That's just opinion. That's just my words. If you don't understand why, right? And so I realized that, and I realized when I'm telling people how to trim, I'm just telling them how to trim that hoof in that moment. And so then they can't adapt. As the hoof changes, as they get a different horse, they rely on me to tell them what to do. And that's not okay, right? You need to be able to own what it is you're doing here if you're going to be of benefit to your horse, but also to others. And that's the goal. And so I said, well, I need to give people the fundamentals. And so I started doing that in markups. And then that could make a markup take
a very long time.
Very infinitely long time, because if I'm going to tell you to take the toe back, I'm going to make sure you understand why. And there's a lot to that. So that not working, people enjoy it, sure, when they finally get their markup, but not working for time's sake for me at all. And so that's where this course, we're calling it right now the Fundamentals of Hoof Anatomy and Function, but that name's kind of stuffy, so we're working on the name. That's meant to take the place of that. So you already have a working understanding in your head. So if you do want to consult, or you do want to learn how to trim, or maybe you don't even want anything from us, but you want to go be able to dabble in what others are offering, you know how to take good hoof photos so you can send accurate 2D images of a 3D structure to other professionals, but then B, you've got a working knowledge in your mind of what's going on inside that capsule. So then you can take the information people are giving you and discern whether it's applicable to your horse, whether it makes sense. Or if you're working with me, we don't have to go through everything to get to, you need to shorten the toe a little bit. You already know why, and maybe you've already decided it's probably something you should do before I even tell you, because now you understand what the hoof is telling you. Who knows?
Well, and how about even tracking your own horse's progress?
Right.
Let's say the first time you took a lateral shot, you took it a little too far forward. And then the next time you take it, it's a little too far back. They're going to look like two totally different horses.
Right.
So you're going to say, wow, did I leave the toe too long or did I take it too short? And so to be able to have that consistency and that really professional way to track progress,
invaluable.
It's a free course. Everybody should take the opportunity to jump on that.
Right.
Just for their own herd's welfare and being. It's always nice.
That course, being the How to Take Good Hoof Photos course, is not released yet. It's done. And it's, again, a mini course. I plan to expand on that in the future, but I think a mini will be totally fine for y'all right now. Right, Piper? Piper says, yeah, there's nothing wrong with a good mini. Good boy. I haven't released it yet. I will, coming up soon. I'm working through the logistics of how to release a course right now. So again, all these things, the hardest part of doing something new is that you've never done it before. So there's still a lot of that we're working through. But we say all that, and I guess I should circle around to another important kind of aspect of the bigger course, the fundamentals course, is that you can't have my drink. No. When we teach hoof clinics, you do learn the function, the anatomy, and how it relates to what you're seeing on the outside. That is what you learn. I'm so passionate about that. You have to know that if you want to even understand the hoof, regardless of trimming. I have to do that in a classroom setting, and you got to fit a lot in a day and 2 days. And then you got to answer everybody's questions, because a lot of this stuff they've never even considered before, heard of before. And so their minds are blown.
Right.
I'm worried you're going to try to take my drink. So I put it right there. Yeah. Sorry, buddy. And so that's a lot really fast, and then you leave, right? And so people are just kind of left swirling. And so you come back for another clinic 6 months later, and yet I feel like if you can take the course at your own pace, absorb it in your own time first, and then host the clinic.
Yes.
Right? Then we come back around and get to teach in person.
Now you get your questions answered.
Right.
Because you already now have a little base of knowledge that you've been studying.
Oh, I think that'll be so cool.
That is going to help people really get this
And
deep.
There's another, big thank you to the Patreon members, because when you're spending 3,000 miles a month on the road, that's a lot of miles. That's a lot of time. And so then when people do inquire about hoof clinics, if we have to travel to it, it's got to fit within a very rigid schedule, because there is no, coworker who I can call in to cover, the horses for that trim day. I have to do it, right? It's just us. You have to be able to fit these things within your work schedule, because you owe it to these creatures to make sure they stay on a schedule for their health. So I'm not going to push them around too much just because I need to go travel to Kansas to do whatever for a hoof clinic for people I don't know. No offense. It makes it difficult, whereas freeing up that time means then we could travel and teach more and do these things without sacrificing the care of the clients who we've served for 20 years,
Sure.
So thank you to the Patreon members so much. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, there's going to be a link in the description below. If you're listening on Spotify or one of the podcast apps, there's also going to be probably a link in the description, but go to our Facebook at Primarily Hooves. I link to the Patreon all over the place there. You can also find it on our website, primarilyhooves.com, which is due for a refresh. I know, but it's just another thing on the list. We're working on the course first. But lots of exciting things, and most of it is in thanks to the Patreon members. So thank you so much for being a member. And if you're interested in joining, it's as little as $5 a month, and you get an access to lots of fun stuff, and you can comment and we'll answer your questions, and you can give us topic ideas for future posts or even future podcasts. So I really want to build a strong sense of community over there, because we're all in it together. And that's one of the benefits of being able to reach a broader audience and fill them with the fundamentals, so they own the information, right?
Absolutely.
Is that kind of like with coronavirus? You could get one person might be infected and they go off and infect 10 others, right? And then those 10 people can go infect 100 people. Well, this is like that, except way more beneficial. If you impart really good information onto one person on some part of the earth, well, then they can go off and share that with 10 more. And then those people, this is how we create a network of educated horse folk who can make better decisions when it comes to their horse's hoof care. And that is how we end the navicular epidemic. That's how we end that, in my opinion. Now, I'm kind of an idealist, so maybe, but you got to strive,
Maybe in your lifetime. Definitely.
Maybe. You never know. let us get into part 2.
Into part 2. Well, we were talking about a couple things in part 1 that we said we would come back and get some information on. And one of those was Dr. Deb Bennett's title. I was supposed to write it down, but I didn't because it's kind of long. So she's got it pulled up on the old Google box.
We do not know what her official title is now other than just genius, but she is a PhD in vertebrate paleontology from the Department of Systematics and Ecology Biology of the University of Kansas, Lawrence.
That's a mouthful.
Yes.
But she is somebody to go look at. Her website is
equinestudies.org.
equinestudies.org. You need to go over and look at Dr. Deb because she really is a genius.
Yes.
And you will learn something from her website.
Yes.
So there'll
just
be some...
like us with the hooves, we want to teach you how the internal development of the hoof or lack thereof affects the external form, right? So you can tell from the outside what's going on the inside. Something that she was very passionate about is teaching people how the skeleton of the horse, how it is, affects what you see on the outside, the external form.
Right.
And so it's very similar. So you can look at the outside of the donkey or the horse and kind of have an idea of what's going on the inside. That's what we want to be able to do for you for the hooves.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So definitely go visit with Dr. Deb. And then we talked a lot about Harry Whitney in the last episode. Harry also has a website, which would be harrywhitney.com. You should go look at his website. He's got a Facebook page. He's just taught us so much so that we were going to talk about a few things that we've learned from him. And one would be saddle fit.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, when he was riding in treed saddles, he had saddles made by Dave Genetic at aboutthehorse.com. And Dave is a master saddle maker. He also had some saddles made from Andy Knight, who is also a master saddle maker in Canada. They both have websites. Well, they both have Facebook pages. They are wonderful saddle makers, excellent quality saddles, make sure that the saddles fit the horse. And that's one of the most important things I think that Harry bestowed on us is that if your horse had been working, you get a saddle that fits him, you make sure it does. And then let's say through injury or illness or lack of time to be able to ride and your horse loses some muscle and then you throw that same saddle back on and then your horse, is either having problems or gets sore back. Well, maybe the saddle doesn't fit properly. So to know all of the points, the rock of the saddle, the
twist of the saddle,
all of these things that are so important when fitting your horse to the saddle and fitting yourself to the saddle. So, the saddle fitting is a subject all on its own.
Well, because if your saddle's not fitting right, it's pinching here, there, the other place, well, it's going to restrict your horse's movement, right? And so then that's going to put a compensation pattern in the body. But what's at the foundation of the body is the hooves. So now you're going to be getting some kind of uneven loading, uneven wear that's going to affect the hooves. And now next thing you know, you've got high-low or you've got whatever,
Right, because we just haven't
we
haven't dealt with what the source is. So just there's so many things to check when it comes to your horse's health. More recently, in the last decade, I think we had said that Harry has been working with a local to us artisan. He wasn't a saddle maker to start, but has done apprenticeships with, I think Dave was one of them that he went to see.
And was it Bill Houston?
The other one was Bill Houston. Jamie Wilcox has designed a beautiful treeless saddle that's not like your ordinary treeless saddle. It has weight distribution panels in the bottom, so not like a rigid tree, but acts to distribute the weight like a tree does. And it also molds to the horse's bodies, which are great. But then the saddle also has availability to shim or create the perfect seat for the individual. Danielle has a very wide
Seat bones.
seat bone placement, where I have a very narrow seat bone placement. Her riding in my saddle is like riding on a fence post. Me riding in her saddle, my legs go numb. To make sure that the saddle fits the individual is really, really important. Jamie uses excellent quality materials. He has many different colors of leather. He does Western saddles and endurance saddles. At this point, he does not have English saddles, although I am begging for a dressage saddle. But he is really, really working on absolutely perfecting the saddles he's already making. And so I do not blame him for not wanting to delve into something else at this point.
We have gotten to be a part of the R&D over the last decade with it, and it's just been a phenomenal process to watch him take input and transform the saddle into what it started as, into what it is now. And I mean, the way it works on so many horses, and really actually does work. In the beginning, it worked on lots of horses, but you had some it just didn't,
Right.
And so then he'd make these adjustments and changes, and I mean, it was just so cool to get it to where it is now, and it is so versatile, between people and horses. It's phenomenal.
And the saddle pretty much will fit any horse. I mean, if I'm going to be riding several horses, which I don't do anymore, this saddle fits all of my horses.
Right.
I have put this saddle on every single one, and we're riding ponies to big draft horses.
Right.
So
it's
it
amazing.
really is an amazing, amazing saddle. Jamie also, before even the saddles that he created, have beautiful leather side pulls. That's something that I never thought, why use a side pull? We ride in snaffle bits, always have. They work fine. What a benefit to starting young horses or retraining horses who, let's say, had been lame, had a job, were getting maybe a little antsy about their riding because of the pain. And a lot of times you restart a horse like that once they've healed and they're wary of the bit. Maybe the rider felt they needed to hold the horse up more, or, were confusing with their signals. It's a really nice way to restart a horse, to teach a horse what each rein means without pulling in their mouths, creating more anxiety. The side pulls have been wonderful.
I ride everything from my 650-pound ponies to my 1,250-pound draft mare in the side pull. I love the side pull.
Right.
All over the place, whether on farm, off farm, in the arena, trail riding, walk, track, canter, little jumping.
Anywhere, anyway. And, one of the secrets to that is your bit is not what's stopping your horse. Your horse's brain is what's stopping your horse. So that's just a little tidbit from Harry. And, you might want to look him up to understand why.
Cool stuff.
Jamie is a true artisan when it comes to leather working. He has beautiful reins and he makes halters and lead ropes. SJ Saddlery on Facebook. Go visit with them. They've got some beautiful stuff. And
they also have a website.
They also have
saddlery.com.
They also have a website, and they are fantastic people.
Yes.
And local to us. We're so blessed that they're so close. So that's another resource for you. One of the other things that we were thinking about was talking about kind of the origins of, taking the entire picture of riding, right? So you're interested in horses. You say, oh, I want a barrel race, or, oh, I want to do hunter jumpers, or, oh, I want to do dressage, right? So we have this huge picture of the thing we want to accomplish, but sometimes we don't have the means to think about how to break down how to get there.
Right.
20 plus years ago, my first experience in trying to break that down, because I thought you just got on the horse and rode. And you see that guy, he did I just pushed my horse over. Yeah, my horse did a little half pass or a little side pass or whatever it was. But to understand the idea of how to break big tasks down into very, very small tasks, we delve into clicker training, or I delved into clicker training for quite a few years. And I think we mentioned it on another podcast, but
Episode 2.
But we do still use the clicker training principles of breaking things down to the smallest pieces in everything we do.
Right.
Do I use the reward as much? No, but we do on horses who have been in pain for a very long time and do not want to pick their hooves up. And I don't blame them. Like,
Right.
what are they getting out of this? They stand on one foot. It's very, very painful. So to be able to reward or give a paycheck to a horse who has been willing to hold that foot up for a certain amount of time is very, very beneficial. At the moment, the horses we have here, they are in good enough shape. We don't have to do that anymore. But will I do that for a new rehab that is just absolutely saying you're not touching my feet? Yeah, absolutely. So clicker training can be a very useful tool. One just has to make sure that the horse always has a choice, because that's the downfall. The metabolic types who are always hungry, boy, they're working for that treat like the alcoholic would work for a drink. One just has to be observant to make sure that you're not falling into that.
Right.
That they have absolutely no choice. They have to have the treat.
But what a brilliant method to help a person
Yes.
understand how to find the smallest try and reward for it, right? Because we want to make
Yes.
the right thing easy. And yet sometimes, well, if I want him to take 3 steps back, well, then I want to wait until he takes 3 steps back. But that's too much, right? If the
Right.
horse knows nothing about backing.
Right.
And so learning how to break it up to, okay, I ask for a back and he
You
thinks
might
back,
see,
right?
right.
Those chest muscles suck back. Yes, thank
Right.
you.
Yes.
Right? That's reward for the
Yes.
smallest try. And he
That's
goes,
the
okay.
thought.
And you can build it,
Yes.
right? And it makes training so much easier and they get so much less frustrated because you're catching those small moments. Because we forget these poor horses are like, they've got no idea what the next step is, what we're planning.
Right.
You
We
know?
have problems as humans that speak the same language, even getting information across.
Right.
We have seen that.
Yes.
So imagine a creature who does not know English, a person who is not as systematic in maybe what they're doing. Maybe one day they ask the horse to back this way and the next day it's this way. And, they know what they want. But that poor horse is standing there
No
saying,
clue what's coming
I have
next.
no idea what you're talking about. And then we get mad and frustrated at them because they're not doing what we want. Well, let's put the onus of that on us to be consistent, using the same technique, looking for the smallest try in that horse to be able to then build upon.
Right, so we can empower them and make them feel like they own it. Kind of like what I'm trying to do by breaking down Dr. Bowker's research into bite-sized tidbits for you guys to own.
Right.
That's what we need to be doing for these horses, and it makes you feel so much more empowered when you really have that information and you have that understanding.
You understand it and you own it, and that's super, super important for the horse to become a partner, because that's what they are in this whole thing.
Right.
So that's been a very important step in who we are. The next one, I would say, and this is kind of in an order, but it's not really, so, bear with us, but finding Don Silver from Herbs for Horses, herbsforhorses.com. He has the company named Equine Science. And Don is a master herbalist. Don's a phenomenal guy. And he has made so many wonderful blends of herbs. Horses are herbivores. And to me, if you are going to help a horse heal, that's the first place you start. And now I'm not saying that herbs are going to take care of everything, but depending on where the animal is, to give it a try, because, they're out there in the pasture searching for different herbs to help themselves feel better. Unfortunately, we have such a monoculture now because, we go in and we kill all the herbs, which are weeds, because we don't like to look at them and they look ugly. And I have a mullein plant growing in the back. Rosemary noticed it, and it's about 6 feet tall now. And mullein is great for respiratory issues. And the benefits of it are just endless. And
wow.
Yeah. Oh, no, it looks like a tree now. Yeah, it's great. We both noticed it, and we're going to harvest it when it's ready.
Okay. Is it somewhere we don't mow?
right now, it's like a tree. So no, you wouldn't mow
Excellent.
it.
Good.
You can see it. I know. It's like big. We'll chop it down, use it as a Christmas tree this year. I know. It's enormous. But it's things like that, leaving the thistle to grow. Well, who wants to do that?
Yeah.
Because, it's
I
in the
know.
way and it doesn't look pretty and it's in the fence line. And, that's where the English got it right. The hedgerows with all of the herbs growing and the horses could pick and choose what they want. Since we don't really do that here, the next best thing is to get these blends of herbs that will help specific things. And Don is phenomenal about that. If you have a question, he is more than happy to answer. He's always been wonderful with us and has helped us create blend. We created a blend for our dog that had urinary incontinence. And he's like, well, I could try something. And he sent us for Trooper.
Mm-hmm.
So he is just such a great guy. His company is in Nashville. So he's a Tennessean.
Mm-hmm.
And he's come to visit our farm. So he's really, really super guy.
Don helped advise when Sadie was sick. Her right there.
When Sadie was so sick and laying on the ground, 23 hours a day, Don was right there helping us out and is very instrumental in her recovery. So, we want to thank him.
Do you remember meeting Don, Sadie?
Our Cushing's horses are all on Don's Cushing's blend because I look at it this way, if I can manage these symptoms, and again, our 31-year-old horse is on the Cushing's blend with no symptoms. Why don't we do that until the herbs maybe don't work anymore? And then we have to go to the medication. I'm not against medication, but when you use it as the first thing, what I see on a lot of these Cushing's group is, my horse can't be on this anymore. Well, we have to move it up to this. Well, how far are you going to go? And then where do you have to stop in terms of the medication? And so if we can manage the symptoms and have happy, healthy horses with good feet, why don't we try that approach first? That's the only thing I'm saying. So I'm not against medication, but when we have herbivores, it's nice to know that we have something that can really benefit them.
Full disclaimer, on our website, we do sell Don's herbs. That started just for our clients, just so it made it easier for them to order the herbs. If you want to buy through us, it does help support us, but you do not have to. Our prices should be identical to Don's, so we're not trying to do nothing crazy. Totally up to you. It's less steps for me if you don't order through us, but if you do order through us, it does help support what we're doing.
We are happy to serve
Totally
you.
Doesn't matter either way, but it is coming directly from Don when you order. I don't get shipping information from him unless I request it, so when you do order, you'll get a confirmation that your order's completed, but you might not get a tracking number because I don't unless I request it. 99% of the time, everything always shows up
Works great.
But that's like the only weird thing now about having people who aren't clients order from my website is sometimes people are like, I didn't get tracking. And I'm like, I know.
I didn't either.
And if you were part of the inner circle when I started this whole website thing, you'd know that. But, So that's totally up to you guys. But I just figured I'd put out that PSA because if I have more people order, I'm going to be getting more questions about it. And I know I get it.
Yes.
I'm not a, we don't do online, selling of stuff. So
No. And we love Don Cypex that
yeah.
used for navicular horses. It is a vasodilator, so it helps with blood to restore blood flow.
The eye blend for the moon blindness.
Oh, the eye blend.
Or
yes, for the uveitis.
Uveitis, you need to do the eye blend with the Cypex because people don't think about. We talk about inflammation in the feet, but inflammation, whether it's from a hormonal issue or it's from something like EMS, blood sugar issues, whatever the cause, we talk about in the feet. But it's affecting all the small vessels in the body.
Right.
The eyeball has very small vessels. And so regardless of an inflammatory cause, if your horse has an eye condition that you're wanting to treat with the eye blend to support the eye, you need to feed the Cypex to help the vasodilate to get the blood to the eye to get the support to the eye. So those have to be fed in conjunction. But it's another reason to manage the diet, manage the inflammation, manage the Cushing's, whatever your horse may have. Because if they're inflamed, it's going to give you less good feet, but it's also going to affect your eyes, your kidneys, other body parts that people don't talk about. It's not just about the feet.
Absolutely. And he's got the equine sugar balance. That would be for horses with metabolic syndromes. Herbal Butte, written up in Horse Journal as being equivalent to regular Butte. I think 2 scoops of the Herbal Butte equal 1 gram of medicinal Butte.
Buzzy over there could be an equine science spokespony because he came on metformin, Presend, and Equiox. And so we said, okay, he wasn't doing well. They were going to put him down. So we should try to take him off that, but bring him on to herbal support because he needs the support. He had insulin levels of 698. I don't know how he's not dead.
On medication.
On medication.
So obviously, clearly it wasn't working.
It wasn't working. So you feel like you could probably take him off. So we slowly and he wouldn't eat. He was just lethargic, miserable, which the Presend will do. It's the dopamine veil or Presend veil. We slowly took him off that stuff as we had to syringe the herbs into him because he wouldn't eat. And he went on Herbal Butte instead of Equiox. He went on Equine Sugar Balance instead of metformin, and he went on the Cushing's Blend instead of the Presend.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things took the place. And
he perked right up.
2 weeks. It took him 2 weeks. It took a minute, but 2 weeks for him to start perking up, and we no longer had to syringe because he'd just eat his food. And now he is on just the Cushing's Blend. He no longer needs the ESB.
Nope.
He is 100,000 years old, so I'll give him some Herbal Butte around hoof trim time, just because he's old and he's arthritic, and so to have to stand on 3 legs and whatever, you like to be good to the old boy. But that's it. He's not on it as maintenance, or the only maintenance would be the Cushing's Blend and arthritis support.
Right, and he might need that forever, and that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we are really good with that.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. But so anyway, go check out Don's website because he has, and all of his herbs are listed. You can go look up everyone. Oh, PMS.
Oh my gosh.
That would be
painful mare soother, it does more than just soothe a painful mare. And it has to do with, hormonal reproductive issues in mares, whether they're witchy or crabby, or they get real inflamed, laminitic around their heat cycle, they're stuck in their heat cycle, whatever it is. And so a lot of people will say, well, I've tried the raspberry leaves. And it just
Mare Magic or something.
Right, Mare Magic. And no shade on Mare Magic, but it just helps.
It does help some horses.
Yes.
Because of the problem that they have.
Right.
But others.
And it helps the uterine lining shed. So if they're having trouble with that, it can be very beneficial. But if you have something else going on, an imbalance in the hormone levels, something else going on, then it's not going to affect that mare at all. It will be of no benefit. So his PMS has the raspberry leaves in it for that issue, along with a blend of other leaves that affect...
Like 8 other, and I've looked them all up. I can't tell you what they are right now, but they have to do with inflammation, with hormonal balance.
Right.
It's a very, very good blend. And the cool thing about it is, like, we had one mare, when she would come into heat, she would pace the fence and lose like 200 pounds. She just went nuts. And she wanted to be over there. And as soon as you put her over there, she wanted to be back over here. Like, she had no idea where she was, but she had to walk. And so we got her on the PMS and she stopped that. And I think we had her on it probably for 2 or 3 years. And then I said, well, let's see if we can kind of maybe take her off of it in the winter. How would she do? And I think it was one of those years we had a lot going on. And I just forgot to put her back on it. And she hasn't needed it since.
Because herbs are supposed to rebalance.
Herbs are supposed to rebalance. We forget these things.
Sometimes they have to have some kind of maintenance, but if things really go well, like it's supposed to, it should rebalance, like Buzzy not needing ESB anymore.
Right.
The Cushing's Blend is doing enough to support him, and that is something. He probably does have the pituitary tumor. I don't know if we're ever going to rebalance the tumor away.
Right.
And yet the other stuff isn't needed because he has come to what would be his balance,
Right.
And so the mare has done the same thing. And the coolest thing about Don and why he's included in this is because he is such an influence because he's so educational. You can call him and talk to him and he'll explain what things do. And that's such a big deal. We had a foundered goat once. Sadie and Katie's owners had goats that we had somehow gotten roped into trimming. We don't trim goats. No. It's not our thing. But the goat was foundered.
We did.
And so what do you do with a foundered goat? Hoof-wise, I kind of have an idea, but how do you support her? Because looking at her physically, there was something wrong. And so we contact Don, and what a wealth of knowledge he is.
He's
and
amazing.
So what a big influence.
Yeah, he's amazing. Another one in terms of management from the very beginning, Jamie Jackson's Paddock Paradise. What a very interesting way to think about horse management. We think about fields, we think about stalls, they turn out, they come back in, they stand for 12 hours or A lot of times they stay on a lot more than 12 hours. They get turned out for 2 hours. They come back in. And that's your, standard management. But with his Paddock Paradise, different footing, different stations, different places to go to keep horses moving.
They were designed to move. Every fabric of their being has been weaved together with movement as the glue, and we forget that. Their emotional health, their physical health, their mental health. I have this amazing book from like the 1800s, and they talked about things like how a horse eats and what happens in the airway when he puts his head down to eat. I mean, it's just all these things that go towards this moving, grazing lifestyle and how it affects their body. Now, this was an old book. Maybe things are a little different than how they say it was, and yet
there were still some good ideas.
They were thinking about these things, and that was so, so cool. They also had some really interesting ideas on hoof care back then. And what we see now, the guy who wrote that book would not be very happy with. It's a neat book.
That's really cool.
They were designed, everything centers around moving. And so we take that out of the equation and we've thrown off the whole ship.
Right. Well, that's just a resource to take a look at if you're struggling with horses who are not getting enough movement. We decided here on a dry lot system because in Florida, I had stalls. I had stalls on little runs and, horses were separate. And I like the idea that they can hang around in a big group. We have a little bit of a track system for the minis.
Yep.
Because they are definitely harder to manage. I mean, they're minis. They don't eat as much as big horses.
Well, they eat as much as big horses.
They want to eat as much.
It's like me. I'm smaller, but I could eat as much as a truck driver. I would love
to.
They
shouldn't.
I shouldn't.
They shouldn't. But that's so just the idea of thinking of another management way.
And we'd love to do track systems instead of dry lots, and that's a goal one day. But when you have 20 and you need to clean poo out of a track system or multiple track systems for 20, it's easier the dry lot at this stage in the game because they'll poo in one spot. Like the minis poo mostly there and a little there. You've got 2 spots, you clean up the poo, you move to the next. It's a concession. It's not ideal, but it's better than not having the dry lot at all, right? And so sometimes we have to make concessions with a larger goal in the future.
Absolutely. Well, and then kind of working in order still. Another resource that I'd like to mention is Mendon Fences Farm. Mm-hmm. And that's where Harry Whitney is hosted every year. And that was made possible by the work of Linda and Vic Bertani.
Thomas.
Vic Thomas, Linda Bertani, I'm sorry. They wanted to create an adult education haven. Yeah, I was going to say facility, but haven for horse people to come and really, really take in what was going on. Food is provided, housing is provided, and basically it's like a vacation with your horse. A learning vacation. Very safe environment, beautiful environment in the hills of Rogersville, Tennessee. Just have to thank Linda for all the work that she has put into that farm and all of the clinics. Vic just recently passed away, unfortunately. Right now, Linda has just announced that she is giving the reins over to Jamie Wilcox and his wife, Shelby. And they are doing a phenomenal job. They have helped for years and know how the system runs. We are looking forward to many, many more years there. The idea of being comfortable in the learning environment, being able to ask questions and not feel shamed for doing that. That's very, very important. And that's
something we try to take to what we're doing now when people ask questions and
there's no stupid questions when you honestly want to learn.
Honestly, and that's the difference is some people will ask questions and they're not.
They just want to start a fight. Yeah.
And so I'm just not going to respond to you. That's no. But especially now with as busy as we are trying to help provide for those of you who are honest and wanting to learn. But there's people who are honest and wanting to learn. And the question could be of any caliber, but it doesn't matter. Meet them where they are and raise them up because you should be excited that they're excited about learning and about being interested. Yeah. And you need to foster that and facilitate that because you never know how far they'll go, you know?
Right.
And so that came from Mendon Fences.
That came from Mendon Fences and hosting Harry. And we have enjoyed it every year for the past, 20
Since
years at
moving to
least.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
At Bennett Fences.
Since living in Tennessee. And we even came up a year when we
Oh,
were in
yeah.
Florida. So at least 21 years. Another very, very interesting modality that a dear friend of mine, Kathy Baker, got involved in was the Masterson Method of massage. He is absolutely amazing. Jim Masterson. You can look him up. I'm sure he's got a website. He's got books, which I have, Facebook page. And he basically uses the bladder meridian with certain touches to help release areas in your horse's body to bring blood flow, wellness, relief. And anybody can do it. I mean, literally anybody can do it. Not as good as him, but it's just such a fascinating way to connect with your horse, to have a deeper relationship.
Well, and I didn't understand at the time, but he was one of the first that I remember hearing and connecting the dots for me, in that if a horse is tight through their poll, there will be eventually, maybe now, maybe later, a front end lameness. And so I didn't know why or whatever, but then playing that into Harry's stuff and understanding where the tension in that pole can come from. Right. And watching him take a horse who travels unevenly and then getting them to travel even, soundly. That started to, and taking it further into a little bit of what we'll talk about, towards the end of the video. But it just all started to,
make some connections. The other thing that I was so impressed with, because I've seen equine massage before in person, and a person is working on the horse in different areas, but Jim and the Masterson Method work with the horse. You are looking for these releases. You are looking for that communication from the horse. So it's really a very, the masseuse isn't just doing it to the horse. The horse is working in conjunction with the Masterson Method practitioner, which is
the goal of everything
you
should ever be doing, from riding to hoof care to massage.
That's right, which is just super, super cool. About the same time, in that time frame, and about 19 years ago at least, we met Allison Dedman. And she was doing a Alexander technique for equestrians clinic. Did not know who she was, saw this flyer somewhere. Somebody saw it and we said,
I think Linda Britannia. Linda approached us about
Thank
Allison.
you, Linda, again. And so we saw this and, it talked about how to be one with your horse, how, we didn't need to impede the horse's movement, how we could learn how to be easier to carry. I'm all about being easier to carry, okay? So Allison is absolutely phenomenal. So phenomenal that we trim for Allison. I take lessons from Allison. We had both taken lessons in the past for our trimming practice, learning how to bend over correctly, how to use our tools correctly, because many, many years ago, we were almost done. I mean, the pain in the forearms, the wrist pain, the carpal tunnel syndrome, the back pain was absolutely incredible. And we were not going to be trimming a whole lot longer. And with Allison's help, we're still doing it. She has been extremely beneficial to me in this last year because of some of the issues I've had from car accidents and other issues that I've had that really just left me crippled. And so this year has been a big year of seeing Allison weekly because of needing to, recalibrate my body and learning how to take care of myself better. So she has just been phenomenal. She is a professor at ETSU where she teaches Alexander technique along with music, right? I don't know exactly what music she teaches. I can't remember, but she helps musicians because, how are they sitting?
Music history, maybe?
It might be music history.
But she does do Alexander technique for musicians.
She does. And so she is just the best. And we're hoping...
She was on the board for the International Alexander Technique?
She was the president.
Oh, she was the president.
Of the International Alexander Technique Society. So, yeah, she was getting calls from all over the world, setting up things. So she has relinquished that because of her other responsibilities. But, yeah, no,
that's pretty cool.
She's phenomenal. We had her to our farm in the spring and held a wonderful clinic. And we would like to have her come back in the fall.
Yes.
She's really busy right now traveling, and
I'll be making posts on Facebook to garner interest if you want to get on the waiting list or get your name on the list for the fall clinic.
She is phenomenal. And talking about another phenomenal person with biomechanics of the horse and the rider is Jillian
Kreinbring.
I always say her name wrong.
And guess what?
Linda is another one. Thank you, Linda Brittany. Yay. That introduced Jillian to us. And she has a magnificent course. She's in Texas now. That's somebody, if you're in that area or, you're really interested in her, she also has a Facebook page, website.
And they were doing a good bit of online stuff. I'll assume they still are, but I don't remember. She's got a group, kind of like what we do with the Patreon, but she's got a group so you can be part of her private, and get more one-on-one.
Yes.
I believe they were doing online lessons,
nice.
And that would be in hand and riding.
Yes.
And I want to say, I don't want to say this wrong, so forgive me, but Jillian has a lot of influence, but runs in a very similar line with Dr. Deb, and different, but in a similar line. And so Jillian's information would be a little bit more accessible, right? Bite-sized, I would say, kind of like what we're trying to do with Bowker, though at the same time, it's the whole horse. So it's kind of a lot more, and yet she's a little easier for just the average horse person to attend and be able to benefit greatly from and understand, because she's very good at breaking it down and linking those connections. So now you start to understand why, from the Masterson Method and from Harry, you're starting to understand why restriction in the pole is going to lead to a front end lameness, because now you're starting to understand the soft tissue muscle connection between the TMJ and the navicular bone. And isn't that interesting? Some of these things start to all really come together through the influence of Jillian's biomechanical stuff. So that is that. Whoa.
Well, and then through Jillian, we met Elizabeth Voss.
Oh my gosh, Elizabeth Voss
is amazing. She's a dentist. She is an osteopath.
Graduate from the Vlugan Institute of Equine Osteopathy, and has brought that side of things into our world. And I mean, that for us, that's how our clinic students feel after seeing the anatomy course, is how we felt after opening up that can of worms to really start to understand these connections. And then suddenly it all made sense how Harry could ride a horse sound. And it all made sense how these things that we miss are going to lead to a very real lameness. Or if the horse is going this way, then I'm going to continuously struggle with one frog being a little narrower than the other, no matter what I do, because of how that horse is moving. And that's why it's showing up in this particular way in the hind end versus the front end. And oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And her, what did she do? Like a little study on the breakdown of the feed and what particle size it needs to be broken down to. And it's why we soak our feed.
Right.
Because when it's soaked, it's broken down into the particle size that the horse can use. Wow. Right? If your horse is not chewing well and not breaking down the particle size, guess what? Coming out the back end. It's really not doing any good.
And it's why we use Stanley. So the soaking aspect of it comes from these teeth weren't designed to chew hard pellets.
Right.
So you get premature wear. You can have choke and all those kind of things, but everybody knows that, hopefully. But you get premature wear of the molars with the hard pellet, even the hay pellet. But we use Stanley as our hay pellet brand because they fall within, I can't remember now if it's supposed to be 5 to 11
micron.
It's around there, millimeter particle size that they need for adequate digestion. Whereas some of the other brands, it's a little longer, or even Stanley's cubes, it's longer. So if you've got a horse with poor teeth, they're not going to be getting what they could be getting out of even, let's say, the cube as they'll get out of the pellet.
And that's super important for these older horses.
Oh my gosh, my old horse isn't gaining weight. Okay, switch to the Buzzy. Wasn't gaining weight and didn't really like even eating the cubes.
No,
he was on like a Timothy Balancer cube.
Right.
Well,
but he couldn't chew it.
Couldn't chew it. Plus, he felt like crap because he felt like crap on the medication.
Right.
But switch him over to the pellets and
voila.
Voila.
So,
because he can actually absorb it. He's 100,000 years old. He's got no teeth.
Well, and then I'm going to just keep rolling because I'm sure we're getting out of
Oh
time
my gosh,
soon.
this one's going to be over.
Okay. So
And each of these topics can make their own topic.
they can
one
make their
day,
own topic.
But they need to
But
be
we just
considered.
want to let you know why we are who we are. That's terrible. So we had a pretty major car accident in 2017 where we got hit on by a guy driving too fast on a very curvy road in the wet on the way to a job. And we were hit head on front driver's side.
Corner there.
And unfortunately, well, Danielle's airbag went off, thank God. And mine did not because of the way the car was hit. But I hit up against the window of the car pretty bad and thought I broke a rib.
Seatbelt got you real good.
Seatbelt got me real good, totally bruised, and just this horrible pain in my ribs. And so I did MRIs and scans and whatever and x-rays. They didn't see anything broken. And I was like, well, why do I feel like I have broken rib? Oh, you'll be fine. And finally it was, well, just take some, I think that's when I found out how much oxycodone cost. It was like 75 cents for, 30 pills or something. And it was absolutely ridiculous. And that was, if I'm not giving my horse Butte immediately, I am not taking oxycodone. I'll tell you that. So we started because Danielle was having really, really tight muscles. And one of the doctors had said, you really need to see, like a massage person. We found a chiropractor massage kind of team that we went to see, and nobody could touch me. Like, do not touch my body because it was in so much pain. But Dr. Bill used laser light therapy on me, and it was transforming. So instead of going 3 times a week to get out of pain, because it would last for a certain amount of time, but the pain would come back, he helped me to buy a laser. He wrote me a prescription so that I could go and buy a very nice laser.
Low-level cold laser.
Low-level cold laser. And he encouraged me to use it on the horses. And so there is a laser book, the A through Z of laser therapy. And so you look up for horses, if you look up different, Cushing's, we did a lot of laser with Buzzy, especially in the beginning, to try to help him balance. Laser therapy, Danielle had a great, very brief synopsis of what it is. It's like a jump start to the mitochondria to get them back online and functioning correctly so that the body can heal itself.
Right.
And so we have used that with many, 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 many horses. We use it when we possibly have a colic. The laser, there is a protocol for laser therapy, different numbers that you dial into the machine. We've used it on several things, and we always use it on our rehabs who come in. And it has just made such a difference in what we're doing.
Right.
So another little piece of the puzzle.
Whether you're trying to stimulate blood flow to the hoof for a founder, or develop digital cushion, or heal a tendon ligament injury. I mean, it's
just phenomenal.
Helping something that's stressed, stressed and anxious.
Right.
Relaxation. I mean,
the protocols are absolutely unbelievable. So that's been amazing. Another thing we found, talking about the Stan Lee products, we would use Timothy pellets because at the time they were the lowest in the sugar department. And Stan Lee came up with teff pellets, which are now the lowest sugar grass pellet that you can buy. And so anybody that's in a very high sugar grass area, Stan Lee with their teff pellet is great. And so then, I don't think many owners really understand, they say, oh, well, I feed a complete feed and, they're getting all their vitamin minerals. They don't need anything else. And so I said, well, how much of that feed are you feeding? And they say, well, a cup. They don't need much. I'm like, did you know you have to feed 5 pounds of that product in order to get all the vitamin and minerals?
Says it right on the bag.
It says it right on the bag. But people don't really tend to read the bags. And so the beautiful thing about using a very low sugar carrier, which could be, the teff pellets, is you can get, and this opened my eyes, before these products came out, I was mineral balancing per Dr. Kellon's recommendations, which were great, but my husband was wondering when I might cook him a real supper instead of just like mineral balancing, my animals' food. There are wonderful companies out there, Vermont Blend, California Trace, and some other very good companies that are making vitamin mineral supplements that contain no soy because, when you're in intensive care here at our farm, we are not using soy at the moment. There's, the GMO soys and whatever, maybe it's a good protein profile, but there are other ways to get protein in. To use one of these companies' vitamin mineral profile for your side of the country really is a help because they can get a half a cup of teff pellets, but they can get a full dose of their vitamin minerals. And I know they're getting it. So it's been invaluable in terms of making sure they get the nutrition they need, even though they might only be getting a small amount of food, technically food. So that's super helpful. We can talk about Kerry Ridgway and his ulcer protocols. When horses come here in pain, we don't think about, well, they've been in pain for years and then they're moved to a different place or, they'd been out of being with their friends where they came from because they were on stall rest or whatever. Well, all of those things create ulcers, and you can go look up ulcer research. It's not just the horse who leaves even. It's the horses who are left behind that can get ulcers.
Right.
So horses are very, very prone to ulcers, and
it affects everything. But if you're just thinking about the feet, it affects the feet because something that Dr. Kerry spoke about, which was just when we learned about this, was again just mind blowing. Is that the ulceration, whether it's in the stomach or in the hindgut, what is in the lining of the gut where the ulcer is the gut flora or the microbiome, the bacteria, the good and bad bacteria. And so that ulcer kills the bacteria that's in that area, right? And as the ulcer spreads, it kills off more. And what happens is those dead bacteria, then you throw off your gut balance, but we're not
even talking about that.
Bacteria then are absorbed into the bloodstream, and just like in the case of, let's say, a colic where we've got some tissue death, it can cause a lesser severe, but a low-grade chronic endotoxic laminitis. And so maybe you have thin soles, maybe you have consistent event lines, maybe you have a weak lamina connection, maybe you have this little inkling of something that's just nagging, right? You just can't quite
not
get
making
past
a change. Yeah.
Have you checked for ulcers or tried to, do something for that? And so we use herbal beta-glucan hyaluronic acid product. We try to stay away from the omeprazole, and that could be a topic for a different day, explaining why. So we can treat for ulcers or prevent against ulcers and then rebalance the gut in a way that does no harm. But that's been absolutely astounding in the horses who just never quite turn the corner. They stay just a little footy, but there's also the outside of the foot's telling you that the inside of the foot isn't where you want it.
Right.
There's a little bit of inflammation, but the diet's good. All these things are good. Well, what's going on? Oftentimes, these are horses who've either been stressed or have had pain. It always makes sense. It's like, okay, yes, of course, that horse could potentially have gastric ulcers because of XYZ. It always makes sense. And the thing we forget, horses are constantly producing stomach acid.
Right.
So once they get an ulcer, even if their life is totally cushy, they're out of pain, everything's great, as great as it could be, they can't get rid of that ulcer on their own because their acid's always being produced. It's always being irritated. They need our help to get rid of it. And so that's a huge one. Unfortunately, he passed several years ago, maybe in 2016. I can't quite remember. And his website had been up. So I learned this ulcer information even after he passed.
The ulcer points.
I was fine. He did a lot of articles and blog posts, right? We can check for ulcers via acupressure points. And he had all of that available online on his website. Unfortunately, here recently, I realized his website's been taken down. It's no longer being, I guess, paid for, the domain. And so all of that was lost. In my free time, I like to watch vintage computer videos. I just find it really cool. And so through that, I learned about archive.org, or they call it the Wayback Machine. And so this I believe it's a nonprofit, this project is, I imagine, a group of computer nerds who wanted to be able to archive the old internet, right? And so save these websites, preserve these websites, and they also do it with software and stuff. So if you need a piece of software for an old printer or computer or whatever, you go on there, and other people who've had that software, if they've uploaded it onto archive.org, it's there for then you to download, which is really, really cool.
That's really neat.
But I went on to archive.org, and sure enough, Dr. Carey's website had been archived prior to being taken down.
Oh, that's great.
Right. And so I was able to find the ulcer blogs. He was going to do 3, but he only ever got to do 2. You know, the third one was going to be how to treat. That's what really stinks, is how to treat. And so it doesn't seem like he ever got to that one. That's available for you guys to get on, to actually look at his website and go through. It can be a little weird to use because, again, you're not actually looking at the website. You're looking at the website saved by. And so it's a little different. What I've done is I've gone and I've saved the articles in PDF form. So they're preserved. So I can share them with you guys who want them or need them. So we don't lose them, just in case anything happened to archive.org.
Yeah, no.
But that was so scary. And then I'm like, wait a minute. No, my leisure time, me liking to watch this old retro tech stuff, is going to benefit me here with the horse stuff, finally, you know? I know. Isn't that nice when, like, you're
when these two things kind of combine?
Yes, in the weirdest way, right? Now is my time to shine.
Well, and so speaking of the ulcer stuff and what we use, one of the most recent discoveries has been Joanne at MyBestHorse.
Oh, another genius.
Another genius. Her husband's a veterinarian. She makes these blends for horses. She has many on her site. I can't even go through the entire list. We started with the ulcer blend, the ulcer and the
we
gut.
Started with the Jiagulin and the AKG.
Oh, that's right.
We've been using MyBestHorse for at least a decade. But we
right.
never,
oh my God.
we never thought about it
You're
more
right.
than this is just where we buy AKG and J-herb.
And J-herb. That
was it.
That was
And
for the DSLD years ago.
It was then Catherine in Georgia.
That's right. After the Carey Ridgway stuff, because it was rebuilding the gut.
Right. We were using a product called Succeed, which was recommended from a Vlugan osteopath to deal with the ulcers, which was, again, hyaluronic acid and beta-glucan. It was pretty expensive.
Yes.
It worked, but it was pretty expensive.
Yes.
And so then Catherine had talked to Joanne, who
That's
had a
right.
similar
Thank you,
product.
Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. And so, the ulcer you used in place of the Succeed, it was the very similar thing, except it seems more potent and it was a little more affordable.
Right.
And so I am very, what would be the word? I am very loyal, I guess would be the word, to the Vlugan osteopaths, because they've been so right. They've been so willing to share their information with me, and it's worked.
Yes.
And so I'm quite loyal to them, and I want to do what they say, because then if it doesn't work, I can go back to them and say, I did exactly what you said. And then they can, help me out with the next bit of it. But they've just been great. And so that's why we start with Succeed. Well, I'm usually hesitant to try something else.
Mm-hmm.
But Joanne's product was just like the Succeed, except a little more potent and a little cheaper. So I felt comfortable trying it, because it's not like you're trying something totally wacky.
Right.
And I think it was a little more effective.
Yes.
And then the gut was the missing link. That comes in afterwards.
The rebuilding, right.
To help rebuild, because, you can help the ulcer, but if the gut microbiome's still off, you're not really getting that far ahead, because they can still be acidic. They can still be...
That's right.
And maybe even the ulcers will come back because of it.
That's right. And we also got into as we mentioned before, the arthritis.
Yes.
The arthritis... What adventure?
Arthritis adventure.
Because we just hadn't known, what was good. And, you hear about the injections and the, all the things that are out there for arthritis, and half the people say, no, they don't work. And half the people say, yeah, they do, sort of.
Well, at this point, we knew hoof balance plus health equaled less arthritis.
Right.
And yet, what do you do? Because, come on, like when you have Belle, who's lived to 39.
Right.
Or you have a horse who you don't have from a youngster, and so they already have some jewelry going on.
Mm-hmm.
You do need, even though health and hoof balance can prevent and keep it from getting worse, and it might even get a little better, at the same time, you still need to do something for arthritis, because you're going to run into it.
Right.
And so, what do you use?
Right. Right.
So much ineffective stuff out there, or
So
stuff
much
that can even
ineffective.
do harm potentially.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's right. Along with that, I mean, we have many more things at the moment that we're, just sticking the toe in. And so we always like to do trials on our horses, on ourselves. I mean, I'm going to tell
Right.
you, if I start neighing after, this, this is over, I've taken a couple horse products myself. Before we would recommend anything, we always do trials on these horses because that's what they're here for, um, to make sure that
You're a
our recommendation,
sacrifice.
and everybody's body is
Oh, yeah.
different, and we know that, and not all things work for everybody.
Right.
But, out of the horses we have, if we have a product that seems to help 18 out of 20, well, that's pretty good odds. If we don't see any change in any of the horses, well, then that's something we're not going
Right.
to suggest. Or the same with a trim or stimulation or a diet change or a setup change. If it's not working for the group, then it's not something that we're going to
Probably
say
recommend.
that we're going to recommend. So
And if we
anyway,
do recommend something, it's because it's worked on a large majority,
Right.
And so it's probably worth giving it a shot. We talk about all these small influences and this little kind of like vague history of, because just like I want to give you guys the fundamentals and the foundation of understanding how the hoof works so you can look at the outside, know what's going on the inside, have an idea of how to influence, and then have an idea of if...
She's making some faces.
You're making some faces, Katie. Have an idea of if what you're doing is influencing the inside, how to know, all of that. The foundation of understanding how everything in the horse is all tied together. It's not just the hooves, right? The training affects how they move, affects the muscles, affects how your saddle fits, affects all of these things work together. It's all kind of one big conglomerate unit that everything leads to the same. It's all connected. That is just been so important to understand and to know, to then help us go forward and figure out these other little things that then tie into the bigger picture, right? And so it's not just about the hooves. Because of that, when we were trying to okay, we need a name, we were just Lauren Gruber trimming. When we actually decided we should do it, figure out a name, well, we do hooves. But it's not just about the hooves. You need to know more than just about the hooves if you want to be successful. And now, we don't mean to be experts in all the fields, and we're not. And we're still...
We have experts that we rely on, which is really nice.
And we're still constantly learning. But you do need to know a little bit about everything. And so we are primarily hooves because we are a lot of things, because a lot of things tie into the totality of the health.
Right.
And so thus is how we got our name. And any one of these topics we can go into deeper in a video, or some of the topics that we can actually interview the people who are the expert in the topic.
Yes.
And so that'll be a lot of fun. But it has been so beneficial to build the strong foundation and understanding how the horse works, because now, just like I say, once you get the fundamentals, you can go out and glean a little bit of something from any professional, right? This person says that might not work on this horse, but I know that'll work on that horse because of, and so you can get these little bits. We can do the same thing out in the world. You get an article, and maybe 90% of that article you can discern based on what you know to be true, and no, that's no good. But that paragraph right there about whatever it is, now that's interesting. And so you can pull bits of influence from anybody if you have that foundation to discern upon, right? To be able to judge critically and be able to connect the dots of who it's going to work for. And I think that's so important.
Yes.
My last little bit, because we're way over time. My last little bit that I think is worth saying at the end of this one is I can be very suspicious. Now, you can't be an expert in everything. You have to have experts. You need to understand a little about everything and understand that it all works together. I can be suspicious of any professional who just focuses on their one thing and has no interest in anything else. And so whether they're into I don't know, let's say the hooves, but then they totally poo-poo diet as a thing or whatever. They're into body work, but then the hooves are just like visibly just,
Right.
and they don't even bring it up. Because the thing is, if you're body work or something, you can't affect all hooves. You can't get all your clients on board to do the hoof thing, but right?
I realize that's not helping anything.
Right, and you can talk about it and you can encourage. And so any one professional who totally throws out everything else, I'm suspicious of, because nothing runs unmingled.
Right.
And so it doesn't mean you have to be suspicious of it. This is a me thing. And yet it is. Bags of feed. When a feed company has just a terrible image of a horse, or a hoof product company has the most deformed hoof ever on their product, what do you really know? I get suspicious, and so that I do want to say, because we do know nothing runs unmingled. And so I believe a professional worth their weight in salt may not know everything about everything, and they never will, and they shouldn't. You don't want to, wear too many hats. And yet they're open.
There has to be an awareness
to the adventure.
Right. Of the other things that might be involved.
Right.
Because you never know.
And I think that personally for me, when I'm picking a new, I've got people coming into my life and I'm like, is this a person I want to have a relationship with? That's something that I do weigh when I'm deciding if I want to pursue a relationship with this professional, is how open are they to the full experience of the horse? If they're not, well, they may be one day, but today they may not be for me.
Sure.
But if maybe they don't know a whole lot about all of the things, and yet they're open to the idea that, well, that's somebody who I might want to pursue the relationship with and get to know and encourage and see what they have to say. And, because I know they're thinking, if you're just looking at one aspect of it, you are just missing so many of the other variables. You're only getting it's kind of like getting sent a hoof picture that's like crooked and to the side, and you can't see anything. It's a picture of the hoof, but you don't know what's going on. Right. The picture's so terrible. And that's kind of the same thing if you're trying to assess something, but you're not taking it all in. You are absolutely blindfolding yourself to what's actually going on. And so how helpful are you going to actually be able to be? How successful can you be? Those are the things I think about.
Yeah.
But
those are great.
We are so over time. So I'm going to very quickly thank our Patreon members once again for your contribution and your support. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this intro series into who we are. And we'll be moving forward into the next video on a topic. If you guys have any topic suggestions, leave it in the comment of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm help push us out further. It only takes a moment of your time, but our videos showing up on people's pages can mean the absolute world to a person and to a horse who are struggling and who need help and resources. So it only takes a second for you to do it, but it can mean everything to somebody else. So hit the like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook. And be sure, if you have any questions, etc., to leave it over on the Patreon, where we're watching very closely to respond to comments. And just thank you so much. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We sure do enjoy making them. And we got work to do now.
We got work to do.
Bye.